Welcome back to New York City's and Biz Asia America. An international treaty to protect the basic rights of domestic workers around the world is taking effect. The International Labor Organization estimates 53 million people could benefit, especially Filipinos, who make up the biggest groups of migrant workers. But many are still struggling. Barnaby reports.
It's been 16 years since 57-year-old Teresita Sajonia left Singapore, but she's held on to these photos, memories of the years she worked as a domestic helper in the Chen household, where she was called Auntie Terry.
Namimiss ko yung mga bata, syempre.
I miss the kids. I took care of them for 8 years. I don't have kids, so I treated them like my own.
She says she didn't want to leave, but her deteriorating health forced her to return to the Philippines, where she's now living in a hut built in a tiny lot she was able to buy with the little she saved during her years in Singapore. It wasn't what her former employers expected when they went to see her in August to invite her to the premiere of the Cannes-winning film Iloilo, named after her hometown. The film's director, Anthony Chen, was one of the children she cared for back in Singapore.
They felt sad when they saw my living condition. I had used most of the money I earned to help my siblings.
Auntie Terry is just one out of millions of Filipino women who've worked and are still working as domestic helpers abroad. Now, this may not be the life she dreamed of, especially not after working in Singapore for 10 years. But she was fortunate not to have suffered any abuse in the hands of her employers.
And there are great employers out there of domestic workers. We know that. But we also know there are some that are not so good. Too often, people still today don't view them as workers. In the Gulf states particularly, there are a lot of Filipino workers, including domestic workers. And there have been a lot of cases that we have heard about in terms of abuse.
And yet, thousands of Filipinos continue to apply for household jobs abroad. The Philippine government, by ratifying the International Domestic Workers Convention and by holding talks with host countries, has been working on providing better social protection for its domestic workers abroad. They're often forced to work long hours with few days off and can be underpaid. But it's a gamble these workers say they must take. Meanwhile, the struggles and sacrifices many of them had to make are still undeniable. Barnaby CCTV, Iloilo, the Philippines.